Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to follow the incredible journey of wood, from a rough, raw plank all the way to a beautiful, handcrafted oak cabinet. You ever find yourself in a lumberyard, just looking at a stack of wood and wondering, how on earth does this become a piece of fine furniture? I mean, it seems like a world away, doesn't it?
Well, it's not magic, it's a craft. It's a process of transformation, where a rough plank becomes a finished piece with real purpose and beauty. And the techniques are pretty much the same whether you're making simple bookends or a complex cabinet. So today we're going to walk through the 4 essential phases of building that cabinet.
All right, let's dive right in. Every great woodworking project starts with the most fundamental decision you can make, choosing the right materials. And this choice, it sets the stage for everything that follows. So for our oak cabinet, this choice is absolutely crucial. Red oak is a classic for indoor furniture. Its green just drinks up finishes beautifully, and frankly, it's a little easier to work with. White oak, on the other hand, is a total tank. It's super dense, and its natural moisture resistance makes it perfect for, say, a kitchen or a bathroom cabinet where it might see some action. But before a single piece of that beautiful oak gets cut, the most important step happens right here: safety. Look, power tools are incredible, but they demand respect. Your goggles, hearing protection, a good dust mask, these are not optional accessories. They are the first tools you use on any project, period. Okay, let's move on. We've got our wood, we've got our safety gear on, so now it's time to turn those rough boards into precise, usable parts. This is where that old saying, measure twice, cut once, isn't just a suggestion, it's the absolute law of the workshop. In woodworking, you really have 2 fundamental types of cuts. The first one is the rip cut. I want you to imagine the wood grain as a bundle of straws running the length of the board. A rip cut slices right between those straws, going parallel with them. You're separating the fibers, not breaking them, which is why it's a relatively smooth and fast cut. This is how you set the width of a piece. And the second type, that's the cross cut. This time, you're cutting straight across that bundle of straws, literally severing the fibers. Because you're breaking through the grain, this cut requires a whole different kind of saw blade to get a clean edge without a bunch of splintering. This is how you determine the length of your cabinet parts. Seriously, mastering these 2 cuts is the foundation of pretty much everything. Using a table saw safely is all about a controlled, deliberate process. It's not just about shoving wood into a spinning blade. First, you position the board firmly against the fence for accuracy. Then, you guide it smoothly and steadily through. And here's the crucial part. You use a push stick to move the piece completely past the blade, keeping your hands far, far away. This is the technique that ensures every single cut is both accurate and safe. So with all our pieces perfectly cut to size, we get to what for me feels like the most magical part of the entire process: assembly. This is the moment a pile of wood starts to actually look like a cabinet. I mean, think about it. You've got this stack of perfectly dimensioned oak boards. They're flat, they're square, they're precise. But how do they become a strong, 3-dimensional object that's going to hold your dishes or your books for the next 50 years? The answer is joinery, the ancient art of connecting wood to wood. For a cabinet, which is really just a box or a case, we use what are called castwork joints. These aren't just for looks. They are literally engineered for structural strength, designed specifically to lock pieces together and fight against the downward pressure of whatever you're going to put inside. A perfect example for building cabinets is the dado joint. It looks simple. It's just a groove cut across the grain, but its strength is brilliant. When a shelf sits inside that groove, it's not just relying on glue. The groove itself supports the shelf's weight from below and stops it from twisting. It actually turns that downward force into structural integrity. How cool is that? And making that joint perfectly, that requires a special tool. This here is a stacked dado blade on a table saw, and it's designed to carve out that perfect, flat-bottomed groove in one clean pass. The precision here is what matters. A tight-fitting joint, that's the secret sauce that's going to make this cabinet strong enough to last for generations. Once all the joints are cut, it is time for the glue-up. Wood glue goes into the joints, and the pieces are brought together. Then come the clamps. They provide that steady, even pressure the glue needs to cure, and in that moment, they transform all those individual parts into a single, solid, unified form. The cabinet is now built, but hold on, the story isn't over yet. The final act is all about refinement, protection, and bringing out the natural beauty of the wood. This is the art of the finish. And it all starts with sanding. Now, this isn't just about making the wood feel smooth. It's a process of removing tool marks. You start with a medium grit like 80 grit to get rid of the big imperfections, but that leaves behind its own smaller scratches. So you move to a finer grit to remove those scratches, and on until you get to a very fine 220 grit, creating a surface that honestly feels like glass. And finally, the protective finish. For an oak cabinet, something like polyurethane would create this super durable, almost plastic-like barrier, perfect for a high-use kitchen. But an oil finish, like Danish oil, actually soaks into the wood itself, enhancing the grain and giving it a more natural, tactile feel. Either way, the finish doesn't just protect the oak, it brings its story, the grain, to life.
So what's the big takeaway here? Building an oak cabinet is so much more than just following a set of instructions. It's a process of taking a natural material shaped by years and years in a forest and giving it a new form, a new purpose, and a new story. It really makes you think. Every piece of wood has a story. What will you help it say?